Imagine a world where something that looks a little bit like a creepy crawly on the bottom of a swimming pool could vacuum up the garbage from the bottom of our vast ocean floors. Imagine a world where a prosthetic limb could be controlled by messages from the brain. And imagine a world where you could navigate, if you were a vision impaired person, the world with messages about what was going around you as if you could virtually see them. Welcome to the future present and the 21st century Indiana Joneses of our time. Meet Boyan Slat. Boyan, at 16, was having a holiday like all 16-year-olds would do in Greece. Not all 16-year-olds would do that. Diving, and noticed that there was actually way more plastic bag than there was fish in the water. So he went home, and being a slightly unusual 16-year-old, didn't just kind of go into his room, but he went into his room and he started thinking. And he thought about creating something that basically amassed all the plastic in the ocean through using ocean currents. And then from that started a company, as you do when you're 16, called the Ocean Cleanup, which is now working to really decrease the amount of time that it's going to take instead of millennia to just several years to clean up our ocean floors. He's 18 and he has a company with 50 staff. Self-educated Easton Lecapelli created his first robotic arm just out of Lego at the age of 14, as you do. He then happened to go to a fair where he saw a young girl, a 7-year-old, who actually had a prosthetic limb. And they got talking, and she told him that the limb cost $80,000 and she would outgrow it and would have to get another one in a few years' time. So Easton also went back to his bedroom. There's a lot of bedrooms going on with teenage boys, as we know. Some just do different things in them to other boys, clearly. And Easton decided to turn his prototype into something that was reality. And now he set up an organisation called Unlimited Tomorrow that he is the CEO of, and he is creating and has created the world's most advanced prosthetic limbs that are $400, with a stream of amputees waiting to get access to them. And right here in Melbourne, our very own Marita Cheng, our serial inventor and tech girl, as we call her, with her co-founder, Alberto Rizzoli, has invented iPoly. And what iPoly does is enable a vision-impaired person to take a photo of their surroundings and then have it described back to them. Amazing, amazing, amazing young people. Welcome to our world. I think a lot about what these young people are doing and what we can learn from them. And I think about it because I think all the time about where are we going and what is the future, what does it hold? And how urgent is it? And how important is it? And so I thought about what they're offering into the world where we are right now. And there are 2 drivers in the world for all our young people, and in Australia, 4.6 million of them. Number one is that work, as we've just heard, is changing dramatically. 40% of jobs will be automated. We're in it now. 30% of young Australians are or underemployed. That hipster barista that you go to at your office has got 2 degrees. Have a chat. The coffee art's amazing, But really, did that cost $24,000 to learn that, which is what we're leaving university with in terms of debt? Globalisation, where you can do a job anywhere in the world right now, is impacting us, but not just us, but the next generation. In fact, the competition for a 15-year-old today is not the person sitting next to them in their class. We've got that completely wrong. The competition is 750 million young people aged 12 to 26 who are educated, ambitious, hungry for opportunity, a 3-hour flight north of Darwin, where we often just go for holidays, called Asia. And then finally, the flexible work future. That means we think a young person today will likely have 17 jobs in 5 different industries, a portfolio of work, profoundly different to anything that their parents or grandparents ever experienced. And then globally, the challenges, the massive challenges of the world. The planet, literally, we're going to have to save the planet. Inequality, 1% own 99% of the wealth in the world. And then finally, in our country, ageing. In the decades to come, there'll only be 2.5 workers for every 5 retirees. That's a lot of vans going around Australia. I don't even know what that means. It's a lot. And a lot of people working super hard wherever they're working to support that, the van. So I think a lot about what are we going to do and what is this new age that we're entering into. What are we going to do? How are we going to get more Maritas and Albertos and Eastons and Boyans in the world? How are we going to do it fast? And what is the age that they're heralding? Because it's a new age. We're beyond information and knowledge as the only key. We know a computer can do all of it for us. But what we're going to have and what they are heralding is not so much the tech, which is a great tool, but actually the age of imagination. That's what they represent. And in the age of imagination, these young pioneers give us 3 really important things for us to understand what they're doing and how they're doing it. First of all, they can wield a keyboard like nothing on earth. Whilst I was sitting back, being all starry-eyed about Star Wars, at 6 and 7, they were actually genuinely working out how CP3O worked. I mean, working it. Their digital curiosity is so great that they can swipe left and right and get a hot date at the same time as actually programming, making, creating, building. Tech. Incredible. They have empathy. We have a generation of young people whose stories from the world of other children and young people have been burned into their hearts and minds through a tiny screen. And they can't turn away. They find it impossible to turn away. And thank God, because now they're compelled to right what is wrong and to make the world a better place. And the third thing that I've noticed that these young pioneers have is they have this learned tool set with an emphasis on the word learned. They've learnt about the process of innovation by doing it. They've learnt about collaboration and teamwork by doing it. They've learnt tech. They are often multilingual and bilingual. They have learned a tool set that enables them to work with others and to do remarkable things. When I grew up, and maybe like you or maybe not like you, those extra things like teamwork and leadership and innovation and creativity were called kind of nice to haves. Later, and soft skills. Later they were called 21st century skills, moving a little bit. But you never got marked for them at school. And yet new research from the Foundation for Young Australians says that employers are privileging and weighting those skill sets equally to technical skill sets. That enterprising skill set is now being privileged. And what's more, wait, you're going to get paid more for that skill set if you can demonstrate it as a young person. What a powerful opportunity and place to be in. You know, in the age of imagination, there's no one path anymore. There's no one career. All your skills and all your passions can be brought into the light. I've spent decades working with children and young people, hundreds of thousands of them around Australia and around the world. And I can genuinely say that I have never encountered a generation with such a heart and a mind for fairness, equality, for making the world better. You know, and I see it everywhere. Just last week, I heard this story about these Aboriginal elders in Northern Australia who were teaching their kids how to use a 3D printer because the whole community had decided to take water bottles out and save their environment. Just 2 weeks ago, 2 Fridays ago, I sat in an auditorium not unlike this, where 14-year-olds, year nines, know anybody who's a teacher in the room? Year nines is the worst year. Nobody wants to touch them. Nobody wants to hear from a year nine. If we could just go from year 8 to 10, everything would be all right. Nobody wants to talk to the 14-year-olds. But I watched teams of 14-year-olds, students, get up and pitch the most phenomenal ideas for their community based on their lived experience, with sophisticated business plans. Sophisticated business plans and ideas for change. I was jumping out of my skin, literally. 3 boys got up and presented a mental health program. And 3 massive boys, big footballer types, and they stood there weeping as they presented this new venture for their school. And at the end, they said, "We're dedicating this to our brother who took his life last week." And then just last week, a few days ago, I was in the bush, not looking at all like this, with 12 young female social entrepreneurs who within 3 days built platforms to transform how we connect and work and find our tribe in the world. 3 days, young women, tech, going hard. Unbelievable. You know, it's a movement. It's a movement that's happening, that's coming. It's a movement of young people. It's got less to do with robots, although, by the way, I have this theory. Imagine if robots and young people collaborated together. Imagine if, can you see this? Can you see that young people and children and robots could collaborate to actually save humanity? I can. Can you see that robots could be more than the stuff of sci-fi and not the job stealers that we're so terrified they might be, but actually together, the hearts and minds of young people, which a robot will never have, but the smarts of a robot could genuinely change the world and our world. So what do we have to do? What must we do to create generations of intrepid Indiana Joneses like Marita, like Boyan, like Alberto, like the 25, 14-year-olds in Brisbane in a school auditorium? Well, there is absolutely no doubt that education in its current form is done. It's done. We need to rethink education. We need education and schooling to be incubators of learning and experimentation. And don't ask me, let's ask the year 9s. They seem to have sorted it out. They knew what to do with their education. They brought it all together in one place. We must, secondly, build the movement. We have to find and connect young people and enable them to build stuff together, to make change together, to find each other. And then lastly, we're going to have to invest and back them to shape the world that they want to see, not the world of their parents or their grandparents. And in fact, we're going to have to step back, because when we come into the conversation, we bring our fears and we bring our prejudices and we bring our intolerances. We have to back and invest and get out of the way at exactly the same time. You know, I wonder if, like me, for your whole life, your grandparents, your parents, your aunts, your uncles, your teachers, you know, maybe even as recently as yesterday, a complete stranger said to you, "So what do you want to be when you grow up?" You know, the age of imagination has liberated us from that question forever. Yes. It no longer serves us. It no longer serves you, and it no longer serves the world. Instead, the only question that I want us ever to ask ourselves and our children and our young people, generations of adventurous minds, is what world do you want to create? Thank you.